Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight we are going to be talking about our thoughts around God, religion, perhaps the idea of what is Jesus all about? What are our beliefs, our truths, and the way in which we navigate this world? Many times people have said over the decades, "Oh, I don't believe in that anymore. Oh, I let that go. It was all about religion, the church, the priests, the dogma, perhaps all of the stuff that kind of seemed to go along." People didn't like control over their life. They felt that they were being controlled from an external source. Others said, "I want to be free. I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, whatever." In essence, how did we get the breath of life in the first place? Where did that come from? Profound question. Once we got it, what do we do with our life now? So who really is in control? Our mind, our thoughts, our brain, the dogma, the religion, God, or do we just walk around like an amoeba, just kind of bump into things, react, act, and then just kind of mill through our days till the end of our days? What about making a conscious choice of having a better life, helping others, and serving a purpose? Today my guest is Alan Davey. His book is Walking the Line, Embracing the Imperatives of Jesus. It's truly about being able to say, let's sit down, step back, and let go of all of that baggage, so to speak, that we've accumulated along the way, and see how we can work back to a cleaner palette and learn, perhaps decide what kind of life we would like to lead and what it would be based upon. Alan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jeanette. It's really an honor to be with you, so thanks very much.
So glad to have you, Alan. I think the idea of what's really in control out there, how did we get the breath of life, and do we turn around and defy everything away along our life? Don't you think in the year 2022, people are so mixed up, they don't even know which way is up or down?
Well, for sure. I think particularly this year of being a real challenge for everybody up here in Canada, it's been a big issue, and it just, people end up living with a lot of tension and a lot of anxiety, and that makes our spiritual journey that much harder. So I think for sure, I think there's a lot of tension.
Truly, I think what it really does is about, as you share in your book, again, the book is Walking the Line. Right in the beginning, it says, "Wake us up." Are we not on a precipice point where we need to be woken up, woken out, and kind of shake off all of that stuff that we've been accumulating? Because I think even though we've had a lot of life challenges the past few years, if you really look at it, people are looking for gurus or teachers to really walk them out of the desert, so to speak, or find a way that they feel lost. And they're kind of looking in the wrong direction, yes?
Yeah, I think we often get caught up in distraction, get caught up in a lot of worries about the past, or worries about the future, either way. And so we don't really stay in the moment or stay in the day. We just kind of keep running, And I think the anxiety and the stress of the past or the future keeps us from beginning to center down and to ask questions that are a bit more profound and, why are we here? So I think, those questions need to be asked. I like your statement about the the breath of life. We all receive that breath. Mm-hmm. And it's an invitation in just that to slow down and to be conscious of the breath, and to breathe it in and to then think, okay, what's my life about here?
Yeah, because if you look at it, a lot of people said their life was cut too short. It was taken away from them. Look at people can't breathe. People are dying too early. When in essence, are we truly in control of that in the first place?
Well, we're not, in that sense, in control of a whole lot, I think. I think in terms of those sorts of issues, I think where we need to begin is to take that big breath and to ask ourselves, okay, just what is my life about, and how am I living? Often we live, we might say, in a house of fear, and what Jesus is inviting us to, and I believe God inviting us to, is to live in a house of love. So how do we make that transition from fear to love? And part of that is being brave enough, I think, to look inside and start asking those questions.
Because right in the beginning of your book, you talk about the chapter Launching Out into the Deep. The heart of sin is that we do not let ourselves be loved by God. In essence, truly, just as you shared in the book, it's about saying, yes, I'm willing to be open. And I wrote on the side of the page, is sin a hardened heart? Right.
Yeah, there's the image of, living with clenched fists, or living with open hands, And I think often we go through our day with clenched fists, and then we do become kind of hard, right? We don't want people to get too close, or we're very wary. We react instead of responding in love. So I think that image of closed fists rather than open arms and open hands is one that we can keep in mind. Because when we clench up, then we do get hard. And we're not very aware or awakened or responsive to the love that is there. I mean, the fact that we live in this beautiful planet is a gift of love. But we have to kind of open up to that.
Because I think also, too, the idea is once we start to open up and being able to say, I'm aware, I'm present, guide me, support me, co-pilot, whatever words you want to use. People think that sometimes it's just, I did that the other day, but it didn't work for me. Or I did it, because, First Holy Communion or Confirmation, but now I'm an adult. I don't need that stuff. A lot of times people think that it's just it's almost like a badge on your banner, and you kind of just pull it out on holidays, you know what I mean? When times that it's needed, or times that are in stress. Do you think?
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think we have a lot of confusion about the anything religious as such, right? That kind of language. People get nervous, people back up or back off and don't even really want to go there. One of the things I really like about your show, Dr. Jeanette, is the fact that you are open. Your whole show is open to spiritual truth, and I think into spiritual reality, because again, so much of our world is just it's just like secular. It's hard facts. It's there in front of me. If I can touch it, feel it, that's what I want. And the idea of looking into our inscape, inner reality, we're just we're really wary of that. So I think part of it is we need to learn a discipline. Discipline is involved in this, meaning just as we go to a gym to work our physical muscles, there is an element of needing to work our spiritual muscles. And so you can't just do it in, one day or 1 hour. It's a practice of becoming mindful and to live with awareness and to be grateful. That takes practice to do that.
Right, because also, too, I think sometimes people think about Jesus or God or religion or whatever, and they think that they need to be like and uphold and be in this restrictive box. When in essence, even when your book, it's about walking the line, but you have different pictures of different kinds of shoes there. In other words, you are becoming the light of God. However, you're still in your uniqueness in how that's transmitted. Correct?
Right. Totally. And you're right on the the artwork in the book. A niece of mine did those pieces before she died, and she had a real insight into people's lives, and the shoes try to capture that a bit. But I think it's the idea that if we think of Jesus, if we go to Jesus, I mean, Jesus only wants what is the best for us. He only wants what is the best for you, for the listener. And so he's not about putting us in a box or wanting us to be a copy of everybody else. It's for us to find our true selves, who we are, created in the image of God. There's wonderful creativity there, and something that God wants to give us in terms of abundant life. He only wants what's good, and rather than us giving things up. It's not about restrictions.
Yeah. What I think also, too, is that as we grow and learn more about God, and people say this is too much, it's getting to be too much. And what I thought was really unique about your book, is the shoes is, just a simple, you're yourself. It's not, sometimes people will say, carrying the baggage behind you. Do you know what I mean? All of your burdens and your pain. You're not supposed to be carrying that. So you don't have any references at all in here to how much stuff you're going to be carrying along with you.
Right.
It's kind of like, can you just mellow through? It's sort of like walking through a forest. When you come out of the forest, you're not carrying the tree trunks with you. Do you know what I mean? Or are you not covered in moss? You know what I mean? You're just into the next light. So I think, can we use some metaphors to be able to ease our everyday life? Because sometimes people will say, I kind of get it, I don't get it. And they get so hung up with the alphabet, it's sort of, just walk through the forest and come out the other side. You're not stuck with it,
And I think we begin to go that way more in terms of our faith when we actually think in terms of relating person to person to God, meaning He is our Creator, and whatever language you want to use in calling Him, naming Him. But He is the one who gives us life. She is the one who gives us life. And as we begin to relate to our Creator in a sense of trust rather than mistrust, in love rather than fear, then I think we sense that someone is with me. You know what I mean? Like someone is caring for me and loving me. I'm not alone in all of this. The Creator thinks I'm important, so much so that He made me. And I can feel good about my life, and I have room to grow and to develop and know more of His abundance, I think. So I think the relationship piece is important.
But I think also, too, Alan, the idea is that you're feeling the energy of Source, the energy of God, versus people are saying, show me a reason, give me an answer, put it right in front of my eyes, that I have to see it, validate it, and have it show up, wash, rinse, repeat kind of thing. When in essence, energy, you can wash, rinse, and repeat it all you want because it's just energy. It doesn't have anything else that's stuck to it. So that's a totally different experience. Let's talk for a second about prayer.
Okay.
I work so much with clients at end of life and those in the transition phase and beyond. And what I truly find is that people will say, I'm praying for this, I'm praying for that, and well, God mustn't be listening, or He didn't answer my prayers, And I've always shared with them this little story. I said, there was this person and she was praying and praying. She just wanted to feel unconditional love. She just wanted to feel it before she passed on. She just needed to feel it. And then she ended up going through all kinds of harsh things, the human stuff, and then a divorce, and then she's standing on the other side of the bridge, so to speak, and she says, God, you didn't listen to me. I said I wanted unconditional love. And it was sort of like she was so stuck in the identity how it should the outcome be. She couldn't see that she had to have a divorce because she wasn't going to get it from that person. She couldn't see that she needed to be transposed and moved to a different space so she could find someone. And then perhaps she could, at the end, it wasn't even the idea of finding it in others. It was finding it in self. And she got exactly what she needed. She just couldn't see from a different perspective, 360, from the story that she had created. So let's talk about prayer. And do we create it and we expect it, and that's the way it has to be? Or can we create it and say it and let it just be?
Well, I think we, again, here in the West anyway, there's such a commitment to us managing things and controlling things and, setting strategies and efficiently achieving them, There's such a commitment to that in our culture that it does impact us. We can use that word enculturate. I mean, if our culture is really about something, it will start impressing itself upon us. So I think we fall into this whole management control thing, and I say that because we approach prayer in the same way often. We want to manage our relationship with God or our source of life. We want to manage that. We want to control it. And prayer is not about managing and controlling. Prayer is offering our true self up to our Creator, our Father, Mother, and anticipating, a response of love, right? I mean, Jesus says, hey, if your child asks you for a piece of bread, right, you give them a stone. If they ask you for a fish, you give them a snake. I mean, no, our parents will do their best they can to give us something that's good for us, and so does God. But I mean, we can't manage it. We can't control it. We have to be open again. It's this thing of living with closed fists. So I think we need to open up that, open ourselves up, open our hands up, and then call out in prayer and begin to trust. So prayer is this conversation, It's part of that relationship that we were talking about.
A lot of times people will say that, oh, I want a hamburger, and they command to have a hamburger. But in essence, then they get it, and then they're all mad about it and everything. And then if you really drill it down, they're really saying they're hungry. They'll say, oh, what are you hungry for?
Right.
And wow, that's when you start getting into the inner core of exactly the conversations we should be having versus all of this other minutia that we've actually been dancing around with. But so many times people will say, I don't want to go deeper because I don't want to know. I don't want to go deeper because, that's just that philosophical stuff. Or perhaps I don't want to go deeper because I might lose some of myself. That isn't the essence. What are we creating in the first place? Are we just lining up all of our stuff to have a great obituary or have feel-good people around so you won't be alone? So are we really creating a false world?
Well, yeah. And in a world where, we create this false self, right, and where we pretend and we manufacture a self that we want to present to others. But, we know it's not really our true selves, but we want to compete or we want to compare with others. We want to be thought well. And so we present whatever we think will bring back those kinds of dynamics. And that keeps us from our true self, right? Keeps us in this world of pretending. I think with prayer also, Dr. Jeanette, is that we want God, but we also resist God. So there's a part of us where we want Him, or want her. We want to be in a relationship. We want to know that truth. But then there's another part we resist. We don't say, your kingdom come, God, your kingdom come, but it's often my own kingdom come. We may not see those words, but that's often what we're presenting. So I think in our resistance, we often do get stuck, and then we stay with whatever baggage we've had because we don't really want to take the risk to jump out, to go over the wall kind of thing.
But also, too, isn't that the idea is that my beliefs and my truths that have been given to me by my parents or my ancestral lineage or my education, all of that, it's sort of like, are we now going to question that? People don't want to have it questioned because they can only see themselves through that human filter that's been lined with all of that tissue paper with names on it. I think sometimes the idea is that when you drum it all down, even with health, it's when you drum it all back, they're going, well, is that all there is? And it's like, yeah. And then they're like, well, what do I do now? And that's true. What do you do now? Can you navigate from that without collecting all of that other stuff again? When in essence, it's like, maybe, maybe not, right?
Yeah, and and I think we have to begin somewhere, right? In all of this. So where can individuals who are just beginning to think about this a little bit deeper, maybe, where might they start pressing out a bit? And I think learning to be thankful, learning to be grateful is a good start. So can I recognize that, I may not have that many perfect days, but I have some perfect moments in the day, and then be able to see that, and then actually be thankful for that, and to articulate that, to say, I am thankful for what has happened here. I'm grateful. It's a new experience. I have never had that before. I was walking along a beach recently, and I heard this kind of weird sound, and I looked up, and there were 7 swans in a V formation, just like 75 feet above my head. And I'm thinking, I've lived a long life, but I've never had that experience before, to look up and see them. And I just, for a moment, I just paused and said, wow, that's amazing. That's a real gift, just a little thing. But we have to be able to pause in whatever it might be and to give thanks. I think that's a good spiritual practice that we can begin in this movement of relationship and prayer even.
Well, I think also, too, the idea is that the society that we are in now pretty much is started, even with social media, it's commanding it even more and more that you get likes, that you're seen, you're heard in a certain venue, you're contained in a certain box, and do you show up as that, But there is an undercurrent of people who are starting to swell up and shine the light, so to speak, and they are saying, this is all there is. This is it. And they just shine their light. It's so interesting when you said about the swans. Every time when I sit down recently, the past few weeks, I sit down to do the radio show, and I look out the window, and, it's nice, or it's bright, or it's rainy, or whatever. And the past few weeks, the owl comes and sits on the tree outside the window.
Beauty.
And as soon as it hears me say, and in closing, it goes away. And I said, wisdom. That's all that is. And I think if we can start using just slight words, slight emotions, slight feelings, and not have to put a judgment on it. Is it right or wrong? It's sort of like if you and I are older, think back when we were diagramming sentences in second grade. All of those hanging participles and all that other garbage, It's sort of like you're going to get back to the I am, period. You know what I mean? And then eventually you get to the I, ... And eventually you get to just ... Because then you are truly in that moment where I don't need to tell you, define it, or be it, or whatever. Just close your eyes and sit. That's the divine moment. And are we allowing ourselves to ever do that?
Yeah. It's interesting, we were talking about prayer there a bit. And Jesus, in his famous Sermon on the Mount, makes the statement of on prayer, and he just succinctly says, when you go into your room, shut the door, and speak to your father, mother in heaven. So just those 3 steps, right? So you go into your room. So that, to me, is the practice of solitude. You go into the quiet, and then you shut the door. Shut the door is okay. You shut it in your new little room. So that's silence. So now I get a bit of chance to just listen, think, and then you move into prayer. And prayer is then this sort of stillness of really recognizing God's presence. So I think those disciplines of the solitude, silence, and sitting in God's presence, prayer, that's a good way to begin. That's something we can all do. That's a doable exercise that will help us, I think.
Yeah. Because what I also noticed, too, is that sometimes people will say, well, I don't have the right words for my prayers. Tell me what it is, and they're Googling them all over the place.
Right.
What is the right prayer for this, that, or the other?
Right.
And the right prayer is 0. It's a ...
Yeah.
There isn't anything there. In other words, we seem to think that our actions are doing in all of this is you're giving back to others, your mission, your purpose, blah, blah, blah. When in essence, all it is your presence and your energy. And can you drill it back to that and see something from there? Because that's the purest sense of unconditional love. Well, we get so messed up with the word love. It's all conditional. 99.999999. It's all conditional. Can you find that unconditional second?
Evelyn Underhill says somewhere she wrote a bunch of stuff on Christian spirituality, but she says we spend a lot of time conjugating the verb to have, and we conjugate a lot of time on to do, but the most important verb to conjugate is really to be. And so we get caught up in a lot thinking of having this, or doing this, when that moment is really about being. And that actually is the most important verb for our entire life, right? It's who are we?
That's right?
That's the ... right? And I think that's where the prayer piece, sitting, can help us there, right? We're so busy and we're so prone to hurry. We do, I think, need to spend a bit of time in quiet and silence, and it does take a bit of time, right? It's part of that practice thing, which is doable, even, I don't know, whatever time, 15 minutes a day, just some time to silence, solitude, will start opening a lot of doors for us, I think, emotionally and mentally and spiritually.
There was a time, someone had said to me, they said, what did you do yesterday? I said, I sat. And they said, no, what did you do? I said, I sat. And they said, well, you mean you wasted the whole day? I said, no, I sat. And they said, that was just a waste of time. You just wasted a day. Are you going to waste today? And it was like, I had the message and I knew what I was and what I was about. It was just that they're still on that outside. And it's sort of like a cat trying to claw to get in to find something or see something. And they just weren't even in the same realm. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't going to happen. So I think sometimes we think about it. We say we get to that point where we really start to feel the energy of God. We really start to feel honed in. We really start to feel this is good, And then and then you say, okay, now my mission is to go out and to be, to radiate light, to show unconditional love. But we have to remember that it isn't doing, because we can't affect that cat that's trying to get Claude's way in. We have to just be in our own space and time. Because when we start to say, but I need to go out so I can help, change, volunteer, that's another judgment. And that isn't it again. So then we kind of missed it. We have to back up, scroll back again. And even if we're having a difficult time, let's say we hit a wall, we have a medical thing, we end up in the hospital, and we say, okay, I'm in the hospital. Just be, just radiate, just be, just radiate. Maybe you were there just to shift the energy of the hospital. Maybe you were there just to say hello to someone that walked past. Maybe you were there just to take up some time of a nurse that's real tired and talk to her. You never know the purpose or the meaning or the message of how we're supposed to facilitate God's work. You're just supposed to be present. Yes?
Yes, for sure. And Catherine Doherty wrote a book called Poustinia, and she kind of writes out of the Greek Orthodox community. And she talks about Poustinia is like a prayer hut, a Russian prayer hut. And when she was in the hospital for an extended time, she said her hospital bed became her Poustinia, meaning that she was lying down, looking up. That's all she could do. And so she just made that place her spot to be conscious of God and to be in conversation and prayer. And that bed became her Poustinia, right? So I think... yeah, things happen, right? And we can either respond to life as if we're a victim. It's all about getting me. It's out to, hem me in some way. Or we can, in this event, how can I respond? What is God inviting me to learn and to grow and to respond to? So whatever might happen. I get sick.
Right.
Okay, well, what is my response to that? I get in a car accident. What's my response to that? Rather than saying or feeling that I'm a victim. The victim just sort of keeps, we dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper, can never get out. So how do I respond? How do I be in that dynamic? That's essentially what she was saying there, and I thought it was a good point.
It's so interesting, Alan. Just as we were speaking about this, I'm now looking out the window, and the owl is just quietly sitting on the branch. And there's tons of tiny little sparrows all around it. They dance over by it. They dance away, and then they're just kind of it's like at least 30 of sparrows around in the tree.
Wow.
But the owl's just sitting there. And you think about it, he's just being. That's all he's doing. And they're just being them, too. And can we coexist? Right. I think sometimes people will say, but this cannot exist in this world around us. There's too much chatter. There's too many clawing cats, And the answer is, just move to another space and time, and you will be able to coexist just as nature does. We look at nature and people say, but they don't have a brain. They don't have this. We got to find out. Do they have a consciousness? Hey, look, we're all a part of the same thing. Just because our mouth flaps, does that make us different? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the idea is that if we are all of this same existence, who are we to be? That's another judgment, isn't it?
Well, and it's interesting with Christ. I mean, one of the things that he speaks most forcibly about is the tendency to judge others. And he, tells us, don't fall into that, right? Spirit of judgmentalism, because it just creates fences and barriers left and right. Rather to sit and hear what they're saying and be aware of that, a more Irenic spirit. Can we do that? There was a practice in the Middle Ages called the virtue of docility. And docility came out of the monasteries of men or women, and recognizing that people could often be difficult. But the virtue of docility was to be able to rest and actually really hear what they say and try to learn what they're speaking. What can we learn from them? So that docility, rather than a fighting and an angry and judging spirit, but what is there in that I can actually receive? How can I learn and grow? And when people live that way, the communities were a lot more, amenable and more friendly for everybody. So.
Right, because truly what you're only learning is you're learning about being in the flow of the energy around rather than to resist the energy around.
Right.
It's not about an answer otherwise. And then once you feel that, then, God's love expands within a community. I mean, that's pure and simple. Take that right there and you get throw all your other books and all your other dogmas and your scrolls and everything away. There's the answer, I think, also, too, you share, in closing, I want to talk about this, your chapter on moving from pride to humility. You look at, again, the owl and the sparrows out there. The owl's not saying, this is my tree. The sparrows aren't saying, we want to see what you're all about and peck at you. They're all just existing. And then they move on. I think, who are we to say that we claim that we know God, we know this, we know that, when in essence, all we can say is that we feel, we sense, and that's all. And is that enough?
Yeah, well, you mentioned that chapter on humility, and humility related to, the word humus, which is just the earth, obviously, the soil, and just recognizing our little selves, you know what I mean? Like real cells, unique cells, but we're little. Each of us have our own unique spot, and God has made us that way. That's the reality. Humility is just recognizing the reality of our condition. That we need others, we trust others, we depend on others. That's being humble, and part of that is being humble and depending on God. And the opposite of all of that is pride. Feeling that I need to control others or be over others. That creates so much of the difficulty in our world. Just nation to nation, group to group. We need way more humility. And that brings us to the being, I think. Being and trusting. Ultimately, God is love, John says. God is love. Can we just rest in that reality, in that dynamic, regardless of what language or what faith traditions, what creeds we have? Can we recognize and trust in God's love and love one another?
Well, Alan, I think in the year 2022, there are a lot of shifts in this world going on. I think the idea is that there's a whole lot of baggage being released. There's a whole lot of stuff we need to clean up. But also, too, I think when we find that, the old thing of carry water, chop wood kind of idea, we might now be in that phase where we need to revert back and take a step back instead of all of this creation and collecting and blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
and
yeah,
to
for
just
sure.
be able to be, our humble selves. And I hope that perhaps maybe in this next few years, we will be able to do that so that we can humbly also heal our hearts and souls that may have been broken from all of the eons before. Do you think?
Yeah, we really do get caught up in all the stuff and all the things, particularly, us in the West. I mean, other countries, peoples in other parts of the world, it's often a more simple reality. I've had an opportunity to spend quite a bit of time in Bolivia over the years, and people live more simply. They have less things. The possibility of getting more isn't really there. But, in their simplicity, there's often a real joy and love within the family unit and within the community, which is really wonderful to see. And it's not dependent on, all of our stuff and, what our furniture is like or how big our houses are or our cars. And I think as we get lost in that stuff, it's really hard for us to simplify and get a sense of who God is. You know what I mean? We just create, it's like an onion, right? There's just so many layers to it. We just, a lot of our stuff gets in our way.
Yeah.
And we
too many filters to shine that light through, right?
Yeah, exactly, right, exactly. Yeah. Too many distractions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I think, disciplines we can be aware of, I think that might help us is being aware of our distractions. Secondly, how can we be mindful? How can we be mindful in the day, be aware, like you're aware of that owl that comes. I mean, you could live there and not be aware of the owl at all, right? But you are. And then thirdly, gratitude. I think we can do these spiritual exercises that we can help us. And we got to start somewhere. So what are the little steps we can do to start opening this whole conversation up in our lives about God and ask the question, who is this G-O-D, God, to me, right? What does that word mean to me? G-O-D. What is my G-O-D? How do I hear it and move into that dynamic?
Absolutely. Well, Alan, it was such a pleasure to have you with us. Can you share with the listeners how to find out more information about your work?
Sure. Well, thanks again for having me on, Dr. Jeanette. And an easy way is just to go to the website daveybooks.com, D-A-V-E-Y books.com, and that will, say a bit about me and what I've been doing and so on.
Well, Alan, it was such a pleasure to have you with us. I think every little time we speak on the radio, it's about sharing some inspiration, hope, and faith. And we definitely do that today. So I thank you so much for joining in the conversation.
I thank you, and thank you for a lovely conversation. I appreciate so much your insights, Dr. Jeanette. I learned a lot from talking with you today.
Thank you so much. If you'd like to find out more information about Alan Davey, again, the book is Walking the Line, Embracing the Imperatives of Jesus. Please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to go directly to his website for more information. And it is about saying, what can I let go? There's way too much on my back that I'm carrying. I, too, hope to rise up, point my face to the sun, close my eyes, and just breathe in. This is what it's truly all about. What is the breath of life about? Open your heart and soul, and you, too, will be able to radiate the light of God. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher. Until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr-jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.